Moving on, our next session is an interesting talk on building a product organization. More than skill, is it the mindset? The talk will include what does it mean to build world-class products and what are the skill sets, technical and beyond, that become essential. Our speaker for this talk is Sridhar Solur, CEO, Kenmore and Brands. Sridhar is a serial entrepreneur, business and technology leader with consistent track record in incubating, building, growing and managing businesses in a worldwide capacity. He has built several product organizations and has a razor-sharp focus on user experience. His expertise also lays in building robotics, IoT and AI-based industry products. Over to you, Sridhar.
Thank you, Justin, for the introduction. Again, I'm so happy to be in front of this group, thanks to NASSCOM, and this time as a CEO. And today, I'm really happy to be talking to you about building amazing product teams. I've also written a blog about this, and you see the URL for the blog. It's on my LinkedIn profile. And in case you want to reach out to me, please DM me on Twitter at Sridhar Solur, and I will make sure I'll send you a copy of my blog. With that said, let's jump in right away into building phenomenal product teams. I just want to give you a wee bit of my introduction and the kind of products that I've built. On the left-hand side, what you see is a product which is very complex, which is a robot. It's a consumer robot. You're talking about 47 million lines of code, 30 plus million on the device itself with 2 operating systems. Then you have the cloud aspect, and then you have the app part that's on that robot. The beauty of this system is there is machine intelligence peppered on the robot, in the cloud, and on the app. Aspects of patterns in time and patterns in space. So it's a fairly complex product. And this was built by a cross-functional team and a cross-geography team based in Boston, Beijing, and in London. So you're talking about teams that are spread across multiple geographies. That was me as the Chief Product Officer of Shark Ninja. The product in the middle is a product called Xfinity X5. This was for a service provider, Comcast in the US, where we brought in digital security and physical security and brought it all together. This is a product that drove the NPS value for the company into the positive part of the quadrant. Comcast was a company that people love to hate. But when we brought this product out, people loved it so much that it actually lifted the image of the whole company itself. The third product is when I was a GM and an entrepreneur in residence at HP. These are like smartwatch or fashion tech products that I built for Hugo Boss, Juicy Couture, Ferrari, and even for an Indian watch company that I absolutely grew up with, that I absolutely love, which is Titan. So the first connected smartwatch for Titan, I was the architect and the builder behind it. It was called the Titan Juxt. So I've built a lot of products. What I also want to highlight is some products are more complex than the other. In my last iteration as a chief product officer for an industrial robotics company, we built a product. It was not just a product, but it was a bunch of products that actually work together, a fleet of products, a swarm of products. You're talking about hundreds, thousands of these products that work together, not just in the XY coordinate system, but in the XYZ coordinate system. That means a climbing robot. So having built physical products, having built physical and digital products, and then having built products that actually move and climb, I can tell you one or two things about building product teams. In my latest incarnation in the corporate world, I'm a CEO for well-known, iconic American brands that build appliances like Kenmore and Die Hard. And I'll talk to you about all the connected products that we are trying to build. But most importantly, I want to connect with you on some of the frameworks that I have used as I've built successful product teams. I'll also tell you places where I have failed, not just failed, but failed miserably, but thankfully learned from my failures. With that said, let's get in right away. There are 4 frameworks as you build your product team. The first framework, I call this the framework of expertise and mindset. And each one of them will go into the details. The expertise and mindset framework will go into real depths because you want to make sure that you bring experts on board, but mindset plays a phenomenal role. But when you bring experts on board, I want to tell you what kind of experts you want to bring on board. And from a mindset perspective, you're going to walk away with a plethora of frameworks that's absolutely going to help you. But most importantly, you will be able to remember these frameworks. And one such framework is what I call as the GAP framework. The GAP framework basically stands for G is growth mindset. You always want to bring people on board who are fellow seekers of knowledge. It's really, really important. The second part of the GAP framework is A. You want to bring on people who are authentic, organic, like authentic. Absolutely, what you see is what you get from them. And P is passionate. You want people who are passionate product builders. Passion is so important in every walk of product developer's life. And that is the first part of the framework that I see when I put the team together. Bringing the right people on the bus. Of course, there's expertise and mindsets, and we're going to go into some of those details, but take the GAP test. The next one is a NASA framework. You know, when astronauts basically go into space, they have to trust each other implicitly. And for that to happen, they usually measure each other by the 3 C's. One is competency. The second is consistency. Like, you can depend on that person. When your life depends on teamwork, you want to make sure that you depend on that person, and that person comes in for you day in and day out. This is not just as you build a product organization. This is also when you're in a relationship, you want consistency. So competency, consistency, and we'll talk about the third C that is absolutely important, which is connection. If you can't connect with that individual at multiple levels, you know, this could be emotional IQ or the ability to relate. When you build teams, they should be able to finish each other's sentences. It should be like a symphony and not cacophony. And that is really, really important. And finally, when you evaluate leaders, I don't have to go into the leadership framework. There are 5 aspects of leadership framework, and we're going to go through this. As I finish this session, I will make sure I summarize this so that you don't have to remember anything at this point in time. Remember, there are 4 frameworks, and I'm going to walk you through each one of them. First, let's talk about expertise and mindset. Before I jump into expertise, I always do this. First thing that I want to highlight is we are in a world that is transforming. We are going from a computing perspective, going from the world of CPUs to quantum computing. And artificial intelligence is like embedded everywhere. As I said, the robot that we built, there was AI on the bot, there was AI in the cloud, there's AI on the app. And I can give you a spectacular array of examples. Computing is actually moving from centralized to decentralized. So it could be blockchain, it could be AR, VR. The point that I'm trying to highlight is you have to make sure that the product team members who come in have a good understanding of where things are from a trends perspective. Similarly, experiences, we are moving from a world of sentiments to sentience. And if you look at some of the aspects of smart machines, you're going from discrete to integrated. But even as human beings, we are moving from organic to bionic. So if you look at the cross section of where we are, it's very, very simple. You want the person who runs your product organization or members of the product team to have a good understanding of what the trends are. In the last decade, you wanted people who understood social, mobile, and cloud. 2 decades ago, early 2000s, you wanted people who understood e-commerce, moving content to the web, Netflix versus Blockbuster. Content, commerce to the web, you take a spectacular array of examples, being the Amazons of the world and not being JCPenney's of the world. The point is, today, if you're in healthcare, you know that you're moving, as human beings, we are moving from organic to bionic. Even some of the vaccines that have been introduced to this world are synthetic in nature. So, long story short, what I want to highlight is you want to have a person who understands trends. Why is this really important? Because there are secular forces, there are S-curves, especially in today's day and age, where you have an impending economic shock. There are certain technologies that have an exponential ramp up. That could be 5G, that could be AR, VR, that could be robotics, that could be AI, that could be distributed computing, that could be quantum computing. You want to know those are your tools. A product builder needs to have the right tools. And these are the tools that you need to use to disrupt industries. And when you talk of expertise, that's what you want. In addition to that, the person needs to understand the product management expertise. And product management expertise has 7 parts to it. 1, the person needs to understand the customer in the market. They need to understand product lifecycle management. Classical product management is something they absolutely need to know. You don't want someone who's a product manager to join in who can't write MRD, PRDs, user stories. You also want this product manager to understand architectural choices. This product manager needs to understand how the product has to be distributed through retailers, direct to market, and then have the ability to drive awareness, engagement, advocacy, digital and social marketing, influencer programs, if it's consumer. If it is non-consumer, how do you drive awareness and advocacy with AR, analyst relations, PR, and even investor relationships if you're going to raise money for the company? And finally, any product that you release in the marketplace, you have to make sure the quality of the product should be 5 stars. I have walked into scenarios when people celebrate when they have a 3.5 stars or 4 stars. That's really horrendous. Out of 15 reviews, if you have a 4-star product, you could potentially have 3 1-star reviews or even 4 1-star reviews. That means those are 4 customers that you have lost forever. Being passionate and being, most importantly, consumer-centric or customer-centric, you should end up in a place where quality of the product, you have to drive the highest customer satisfaction. That has to come from within. And that is innate in a product developer. And finally, value engineering. You should be able to make the product with the least amount of cost, driving down cost of goods sold. That's really important. And that should be within the DNA from an expertise perspective from a product manager. So I have spoken about 2 aspects of expertise, tech and product management expertise. But I'm going to spend the rest on the mindset. Think about it. You cannot just talk about products. It should be products, portfolios, and ecosystems. Products alone, you're going to die. You're going to become a one-trick pony. Take, for example, GoPro. Okay. You want to make sure you have an array of products. You have to be rarely satisfied as a product developer. That's a great advice when it comes to product, not relationships. Details, details, details. You have to make sure that people are in the details. Build a team where you have an atmosphere. There is no emotions when someone challenges you. I have worked with bosses where you cannot challenge the boss. That's not an environment you want to be in. You want to be in a learning environment because no one is always right. You want to build a team where people can come in and challenge you if you are the boss, and people can challenge each other, devoid emotions. And you know what happens? The customer wins. Maniacal focus on the consumer. And always the humility that leadership has to be earned. It's never bestowed. Whether you're a chief product officer or a CEO, never take that for granted. And remember, winning is a team sport. And we don't want superstars. It's like any basketball game. You want people who assist, who take rebounds, who are power forwards, who defend. Winning is a team sport. And in any walk of life, don't try to create a masterpiece. Every day make meaningful progress. Itty-bitty, small progress. That is what is going to drive you. And that's the mindset that you want to have. What I'm going to do next is focus a little bit more on the 3 frameworks of mindset. That's absolutely important. The first is the gap mindset. So anytime you bring anyone into the organization, and say, in the interview process, I want to make sure I ask them behavior-based questions. Amazon does a phenomenal job when it interviews people. Go look at questions from Amazon. It's all like anecdotes. But look at the consumer centricity. Look at humility. But most importantly, is there a growth mindset? Does this person really want to learn? And when you ask behavior-based questions, you will know if that person is authentic and can speak with passion. Every month after, you want to make sure you're questioning the 3 C's of the organization and question it for yourself. Am I being consistent? Am I showing up day in and day out? Do I have my weekly reports? Do I build those connections with all my coworkers? And am I honing my competency? And from a leadership quality, the 5 aspects of leadership, modeling the right behavior, inspiring, challenging, but balancing that with enabling and encouraging. That's really, really important. And as you go in to develop a product, it's not just a mindset. You need to have an understanding of whether the approach in your organization is bottoms up or is it top down. There are advantages of both the approaches. bottoms up and top down. And you want to bring in a melange. It's such a beautiful French word, the eclectic mixture of top down and bottoms up. When you do top down, you're basically, it's an army approach. When you do bottoms up, it is a guerrilla warrior approach. You want to have a mix of both coming together. And that's the beauty of, looking at innovation top down and bottoms up. And also, when you build a team, you need to have overlapping skills. See, your team of 6 or 7, if you have overlapping skills, someone has to take a vacation. There are going to be life events. You want each one to cover for the other. And that overlapping skill sets is something that you need to have. And finally, I want to bring this all together. I have highlighted the 4 frameworks. The gap framework, as you bring in people, the expertise, and when I talk of expertise, I'm talking about tech and product. The 3 C's, wherein we evaluate each other month over month and hold our feet to the fire, the leadership qualities, the 5 of those. And then finally, understanding that when innovation happens, it's top down and bottoms up, macro and micro. Remember, customer first always. The 4 frameworks, combination of expertise and mindset being 1, the gap framework, the 3 C's, and modeling the right behavior, inspiring, challenging, enabling, and encouraging. Remember, innovation is both democratic, bottoms up and top down. Failure is acceptable, inaction is not. Small teams, always very easy to iterate. I would break up big teams into smaller teams. I think Amazon calls that the pizza box. And most importantly, enjoy the ride as you build products. And I've put this all together in a blog and packaged this. Again, I would like to thank Justin and NASSCOM and the rest of the team for bringing me on board again to talk about building products. And Justin, back to you, mate. Thank you.
A treasure trove of experiences there. Thank you, Sridhar, very much indeed for that insightful talk and for sharing your perspective. With that, we conclude a very interesting second half of the sessions. We break now for the networking zone. We'll see you back here again at 3:25 p.m. for an interesting evening session. Please make the best use of this great chance to connect and interact with your peers across industries and companies. We will see you on the other side of the networking zone. Once again, a reminder to please fill in our feedback forms pinned on the chat window and the lobby. See you soon.